In this video, we'll be looking at film sound. So sound is everything that we hear in a movie, such as words, sound effects, and music. There are two types of sound. There's diegetic sound. These are audio elements that come from sources inside the world of the film, such as dialogue and environmental noises. And then there is non-diegetic sound. These are elements that come from outside the world of the film, such as the musical score and the voiceover. Sound can be used to heighten the mood of a scene. For example, high-pitched sounds can create fear or anxiety, as we will see in the upcoming clip, while soft repetitive sounds can generate calmness or contemplation. Sound is similar to set design and costumes in that it can tell us things about the world of the film, such as music from a particular era or culture, or it can convey the ambient noise of a particular setting. Sound can convey emotions or reveal the inner workings of a character. For example, a character's face or words may communicate one thing to another character, but his narration or accompanying music may communicate something else. The elevating or blurring of particular sounds can also signify a character's subjective consciousness as they become disconnected or hyper-focused on an aspect of the world around them. Sound is similar to color in that it is an element that was not present in early films, but became integrated with advances in technology. Even though we think of sound as essential to cinema, technically the definition of cinema requires only a moving picture. However, some film historians take issue with this. They argue that sound was essential to cinema, as even though the original films were silent, their exhibition would often be accompanied by music, such as a piano player in the theater or even an orchestra. Now that we've defined film sound, we'll be watching a short scene from the film The Birds. The Birds is an American thriller first released in 1963. In this scene, Melanie Daniels drives to collect the younger sister of her boyfriend from school. When watching the scene, I want you to consider the use of audio. What sounds do you notice? What might these elements signify about the story, the characters, or the mood of the film? A link to the clip can be found below in the video description. After you've watched it, please return to this video. So now that you've watched the scene, what kinds of sounds did you notice? Were there diegetic or non-diegetic sounds? Personally, I didn't notice any non-diegetic sounds. All of the sounds I heard had a source within the world of the film. The scene starts with the roar of an engine amidst a silent road. This implies a rural setting. Then we have the sound of the car receding as it drives away from the frame and gets louder as it arrives, creating this sort of sonic depth and composition. One way to appreciate film sound is to actually close your eyes and just listen to a scene and see if it makes sense purely on an auditory level. Melanie approaches a school and we hear the children singing before we see them. They get louder and louder as the woman approaches and then enters the school. The children are singing quite serenely. This creates a sense of peace and balance. But the song is repetitive and kind of lulls us into this complacency. And you see that complacency visually as Melanie is sitting there smoking and kind of daydreaming. The music in the background repeating over and over again, hypnotizing her and the viewer. Other sounds, the climbing of the steps, the doors opening. The footsteps are quite decisive. She's waiting. We've got the cigarette lighting, again, implying waiting. One of the creepier aspects of the scene is that the birds are silent. Even as they're amalgamating and amassing, they're quite silent. They transition from banal to threatening without us really noticing. All of a sudden, Melanie turns around and there is just hundreds of them. Anyway, Melanie goes back into the school to warn the children and the teacher, and they're singing falters as she interrupts them, disrupting that sense of auditory serenity. We cut from the school to the sound of running footsteps, and then we see the children running. The sound of the running actually triggers the birds into flight, and then we hear a lot of cawing and fluttering of wings, and what was dormant becomes an assault of sound, and the birds start filling the soundtrack with screeches. It's an interesting scene in the sense that it has very little dialogue, and therefore is an excellent depiction of the power of film sound to create meaning, and in particular to create dread and anxiety. So those were my thoughts on the scene, but let me know what your thoughts about the Hitchcock's use of sound. I would love to hear it. That's the end of this video. Stay tuned for the next video in which we investigate editing.